Welcome. This is Kelly Fasterling with eXp Realty, and I have a special treat today. I am here with Colvin, and she is a broker out of Montana. She has been in real estate now since 2015 with a few different companies, but then had her own brokerage as well. And she just recently joined eXp Realty. So, Joe, welcome. We're just honored to have you here with us today.
Well, Kelly, thanks so much for having me.
Oh, certainly, certainly. Now, you didn't start off in real estate, though. You started off doing some other things. Talk to me a little bit about your background before you hopped into real estate.
I did. So my career spans quite a while. I actually started out in the direct response industry. Started there very young in my early 20s. I worked in a print letter shop. I did anything from direct mail to inbound, outbound telemarketing, wrote scripts for that. From there, when I moved, that was in California. When I moved to Montana in 1998, there really wasn't a lot of direct response here in Montana. So I kind of did a little bit of a pivot and got into television radio side of things. And so I worked for a company here in Montana for 15 years, Production West, which is an amazing company. And I was the GM for several years there. We produced national commercials and infomercials. So it was a little bit of a pivot, but similar, but different. On the infomercial side. So I did that for a long time. So executive management, client services is my primary background.
That sounds like actually a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, but then you shifted into real estate. What was that transition like? Why did you select real estate as the next career?
Sure.
And how did you select where you went?
Sure. So here's the thing. So my husband has been a builder here in Billings for, honestly, probably almost 20 years now. And he had somebody else list his properties who was a phenomenal realtor. She's amazing. And just kind of decided at one point I wanted to do something a little bit different. I had a little guy, and there was quite a big age difference between my kids, which I've talked to you about that before. So I had a little guy, and I thought, you know what? I was traveling a lot for work. I worked a lot of hours, and I had to make a decision that would work best for me and my family. And so I thought, gosh, real estate, it gives you flexibility. I've always been a little bit of an overachiever, so I knew I would do well in it. But I also wanted something that I could work around my little guy's schedule, that kind of thing. So I talked to my husband, and he was like, I think you really need to get your real estate license. You could list all my properties, and then you could kind of build from there. So that's what I did. So I got my license in 2015, and I haven't stopped since, actually. So yeah.
Well, and tell me a little bit about your early journey in real estate before you kind of decided to come into eXp. Where were you and why? Why did you select those companies?
Sure. So first, I'm going to apologize because my light is flickering, so I have to apologize for that. I'm not sure why.
It's okay.
So what I did is I actually met a really good friend of mine who's actually now eXp as well, Kristen Smith. And we talked about real estate, and I told her that I wanted to get my license. At the time, we started at Keller. So I was at Keller Williams and started there. And I really like the model. I think the Keller model is a great model. Just kind of decided that particular facility wasn't for me, and that's okay. I mean, there's nothing bad. It was just not for me. And I went to another location with a gal actually that listed my husband's properties. She was amazing. She's a phenomenal, one of the best realtors in Billings, if not Montana. She's phenomenal. And I loved that. And then I wanted to do my own. So I've always had just a little bit of an independent spirit about me. And I thought, gosh, I'm going to do my own. And then this kind of came about. So hopping onto eXp was an easy transition for myself. I had to think about it for a little bit because, when you have your own brokerage, you build your own brand, which I can still keep, which I have to tell you, which I love, right? So I love my company. I love what I've done with it, but I love being brokered by eXp. So it was a big decision, but it was a big one, but an easy one at the same time, right?
Well, tell me about some of the benefits of being your own broker, kind of managing your own business. Tell me about the benefits of and that decision and the benefits of having your own brokerage.
Sure. So having my own brokerage, I mean, are you referring to my own brokerage being brokered by eXp? The benefits
prior to that.
Okay. So having my own brokerage for me, it was about building a brand that I wanted to build, right? I didn't really want to follow a bigger company philosophy, a franchise philosophy, if you will, right? I also, even some smaller brokerages that are phenomenal, didn't really have a brand. And so you kind of have to follow along their guidelines and stuff, right? And so I wanted to do something for myself. I wanted to put a name out there and build on something and build on something that I know I could build on for years. It didn't have to be right away, but it could be something I could build on for years. And so
Right.
I even got to the point where I trademarked some things. I did it just to kind of build my legacy, if you will, right? And that
Exactly.
was important to me to set the foundation, so I could stay in real estate for years and years, but I could continue to build on the brand for years, right?
Gotcha.
Um,
Gotcha.
now moving to EXP, I mean, for me, the thought of it was, gosh, I'm doing a lot of admin. There's a lot of things that I was doing that I didn't have time to work with agents on, right? Like I was like, I'm taking away time. I could have been probably a better trainer, things like that, if I wasn't doing these other things and delegating these things I could probably should have been doing.
Gotcha.
Um, but that was one of the main reasons why I went over. But I'm sure you'll ask questions and I will answer them because I'm a talker. So I'm sorry, Kelly.
Oh, no, that's perfect. That's perfect. Okay, so talk about that a little bit. So
Yeah.
here you are at 100%. You're managing, you're running your own business. You've got your own brand. You've got your agents in your group,
Yeah.
and then you decide to shift across to a large brokerage, the fastest growing brokerage in the history of real
Correct.
estate.
Yeah.
What were the advantages of giving some of that up to move into EXP? And then what did you get to keep and focus on?
Sure. So I'll back up a little bit. So I had a partner with my business, and we actually split. We split because she really wanted to focus on farm and ranch and stuff, and that was perfect. You know what I mean? That was like a good split. So at that point, it was like, gosh, Kristen was like, "Hey, this is what I'm doing," and I was like, "Oh, okay. Let me think about that." Right? Okay. Let me think. This is probably a good time, right? I'm kind of changing up my logo. I'm changing up a few things. Gosh, let me think about this. I ran the numbers. Right. Number one, I I really looked at a lot of things. I looked at what I was spending, what my advantages are with EXP as far as technology is concerned. Getting SkySlope, KB Core alone is phenomenal. I'm still, it's such a beast that I'm still diving into it, right? I mean, that's a several month tackle itself, right?
Yeah.
That, I mean, the recognition of it, the team aspect of it, which I really like. I really like the idea of having my own. I could still be a modern Montana real estate, but being brokered by EXP. It just basically, to me, it's almost more like powered by EXP, right? I'm my brokerage, but I'm being powered by somebody else because they're empowering me to still do my vision, but at
Yeah.
the same time, I can go to you or so many other people to talk about different things that are going on to get advice from other people, right? I
Right.
think being surrounded by good people makes you even better,
Yeah.
right? That was a big deal for me. I will tell you too, as part of my process to merge over to EXP, I was traveling in California. I went to 2 different EXP offices. I talked to EXP offices in Portland. So I really did my due diligence to find out the pros and cons of it all. There are a lot more pros than cons. There's always going to be that in business, but for myself, I had to kind of decide the pros. Did the pros outweigh the cons? And they absolutely did for me. And it's
Okay.
been so much easier for me with that. And talking with other people made a huge difference. I mean, I talked to an eXp brokerage that had over 100 employees, that had not employees, but 100 agents. So that
Okay.
was really important to me. Yeah, really, really important. Yeah.
Now, as you've kind of let go of some of the responsibility, the liability, the
Mhm.
overhead
Yeah.
of managing your own brokerage,
Hmm.
what relief might you feel, or do you feel at all, for letting some of that go, giving that up to EXP, and yet holding on to the parts of being a broker that you liked? How does that look for you?
So there's so many different dynamics of it, right? So with regards to liability, I mean, it might even sound silly in the minutia, but not having to keep track of all the files. I mean, I know that sounds simple to have an office, you have to have a designated area, or you have to have, or if it's all digital, you know what I mean? There's that aspect. Do I still keep my own files? 100%, on digital, that kind of thing. But it's so nice to have that, to not really have to worry about, gosh, with the liability part, just the E&O part of it, just managing your E&O, even your E&O policy, making
Yeah.
sure, I don't know about any other brokerage out there, but I read that policy. I wanted to make sure everything we did was covered, right?
Right.
It's as simple as that. I mean, which takes up your time to do that, and making sure that whatever agents, whatever they're selling is covered under your E&O policy, and making sure you're aware of all that, because it can come back around to you. 100%. A lot of people assume that with an E&O policy, you can sell anything. That's not the case, right? So there's so many things I have to think about. Just that alone, the admin part of that alone, and then also the training aspect, like the eXp training aspect was huge for me to have it set up. I mean, have the system set up. I had some, but you know what? I'll be honest, it was probably more ad hoc, right? It was more on the fly training with me versus a structured training system that could be followed. And then an agent can work with me through that process, right? So that was a big deal for me as well. So coming up with all the systems and all that, I mean, I spent a lot of time doing that before, but they were never complete, to be honest with you, because I was busy selling real estate versus doing the admin part of the business. So that's kind of that was a huge save for me, for sure.
Well, and giving up some of the contract review, the oversight of your agents, has that been somewhat of a relief at all?
You know what? I will say I'm still, to be honest with you, I actually do I'm a little bit particular. So I do like to make sure I check everything, especially with newer agents. I do like to check all the documents before they go out. And it's also, and I do that because a big part of it is really training agents on how to have the conversation with your clients too. It's not just a matter of, here you did 3 transactions, you're good to go. I just don't believe in that philosophy. I really do believe that people you need to, it takes time to develop the communication you have when you're going over any sort of contracts with your clients. So important. So I do that honestly, probably up to 10, 12 transactions. I think that's just really important to have that. So I know. So I don't quite let go of that, to be honest with you. I mean, it's nice to have that. Hey, all your stuff's not in Sky Slope. It's nice to have all of that. Like, hey, you're missing these documents. I love all of that part. I don't have to worry about that. But as far as reading through the contracts, that's really crucial that I'm still involved.
Well, and with eXp, you can let some things go and then you can hold on to some things. What are those things about kind of team oversight, team management do you just love that you can still carry forward in this model?
Well, what I would say is I think that I would probably use the word collaboration more than I would team. I think that with our group, with the freedom group, with the freedom team, what I really like with us is that there's a lot of collaboration within the brokers within there. There's several that have their own little brokerages or do their own thing, but we all can come together and collaborate. And I think that's so important. I mean, we have a group here in Billings, and there's a couple of us that are combined. And this week we're doing a goal setting class because it's nice to bring more than just your small little group together. You can combine 2 or 3 because you're getting input from so many people around you, right? And I think the agents benefit from that as well.
Yes. Yeah. Well, and you did your due diligence. You actually talked to a whole number of eXp people.
I did.
Why did you select Kristen and the Freedom Team? What was of value in that?
Yeah. So of course, the reason I selected Kristen was primarily because her and I have a lot of the same mindset. Mindset's a big deal to me, right? And when I'm communicating with people, it's not about when you're selecting the right fit for yourself and making a business decision, right? For a personal decision and a business decision. It was more about how I could see myself growing and expanding my team in the future. Kristen and I have a lot of the same mindset. We've always covered it for each other. Even prior to eXp, if she would go on vacation, I mean, she would always say, hey, could my people call you? And I would do the same, that kind of thing. So we already have that really good rapport together. And I think that's really important to have that. So that was kind of an easy fix, or an easy decision. But in speaking with the other teams, I have to tell you, everybody had really good attributes. I will say, I mean, everybody I talked to was so great. It really boiled down to what fit me the best. And it was more of a feeling and a mindset it was like, these people are great producers. These people are, it's about building your wealth and building your legacy. These people, so I had to really think about where was my fit. And with Freedom Team, I liked the fact that because I do own rentals and because I do like a passive income is really important, especially as we get older. I felt that the Freedom Team was really all about that, all about building your legacy and building more than just selling real estate, right? And that's how I had to look at things. I like that aspect of it. Not everybody does that, but I think we have a good lion's share of people that do it, and that's what I appreciate.
Good. Yeah, exactly. Because that is such a crucial part, building that retirement, and retirement may not be getting out of real estate. Retirement may be choosing where you spend your time.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. I mean, here's the best part about real estate though. Real estate is we could sell real estate till we're 80 years old. We could sell 1 or 2 houses a year and we can use that money to go travel to Italy. We could do whatever we want to do. That's the best part about real estate. But our goal to me is I sell real estate to help fund my retirement, right? And so that's really
Yeah.
important to me. I'm at this real estate's a second career for me. So it
Yeah.
was like, okay, I'm going to pivot and I'm going to put all this money away because this is what I want to do. I don't want to work a 9 to 5 forever. I didn't want to do that. I wanted to have my flexibility, do what I want. And real estate allows us to do that. But it
Yeah.
also allows us the opportunity. Gosh, there's so many things you can do to build passive income. I mean, and you learn so much more of that by selling real estate and getting involved with that, right? Versus when you're not
Yeah.
selling real estate, you're kind of like, oh, we'll buy a rental, whatever. You don't know anything about it until you really get knee deep involved in it.
Yes, exactly, exactly. Well, and you and I had the opportunity to meet back
Mhm.
in August at a conference,
Yes.
and so that was your first kind of exposure to one of the bigger events. Talk to me
Yes.
about that and what your experience was like there.
Sure. So we met at Build 22, right in Dallas. And so I was still on the fence. I hadn't joined eXp yet, actually. So it was kind of like the final decision for me. It was like, okay, I'm going to go to this conference because I really want to talk to more people. Again, I'm all about doing my due diligence on making the decision. It took about 4 months, right, from start to finish. So Kristen was like, hey, I'm going to Build. Do you want to go with me? And I was like, yeah, you know what? I kind of do want to check it out. So
Yeah.
I went. I mean, I guess the high points for me on Build, number one, again, you're talking collaboration. Every agent I talked to was more than welcoming. And I was very honest with people. Hey, look, I haven't made the decision. And everybody I talked to would be like, well, here's why I made my decision. And I'm not going to tell you what to do for your decision, but here's why I made mine. And here's why I love eXp. And I would ask, and I was really straightforward about it. The environment was phenomenal, by the way. I felt like we took away a lot. We took a lot that we could actually build our business on. It's really, again, it was so legacy driven. And that spoke to me because that was all about what I want to do. My husband and I always talk about like, what do we want to leave our kids? What do we want to do with ourselves? I mean, obviously we have a gap in age. We have a 20-year gap in age in our kids, and our youngest is now 13. And so we're like, gosh, now we're going to be able to go travel and do some things, and we want to do that, right? So, but it's all about like, building our equity and building our whole portfolio to leave for our kids and now our grandkids, because now I'm a grandma. So
Yeah.
that's really important, right? And so those
Yeah.
are things that him and I talk about all the time, and it just seemed to make sense. And I called him actually when I was in Dallas, and I said, this is pretty awesome. He goes, so you've made your mind up? And I say, he goes, that's awesome. And that was a big deal for me. That
Yes.
was a really big deal. And I only touched the production side of eXp so far. I haven't touched the whole, agent attraction side. You know what I mean? So it's just,
Yeah.
I had to think about where I could build everything to expand, our own personal portfolio. So, yeah.
Well, exactly. And as you've become a part of the Freedom Team and attended some of the trainings and
Yeah.
worked with the collaborative environment there,
Mhm.
tell me some of the kind of the surprises or the takeaways that you've had in that experience.
Well, I think in our particular group, I think that just the knowledge is amazing, right? And I think I can pretty much call anybody and get an answer. If I'm stumbling on something like, hey, what do you think about this? Or hey, I have somebody that might be thinking about coming on board. I know I could call you in a minute and you'd be like, oh, here, let's just get them on a phone call.
Yeah.
Because I'm still learning some of the ropes, right? As far as um, EXP, I think the thing is EXP, I want to say it's dynamic, right? So there's
Right.
just so many aspects of it, and we're not going to learn it all right away. And I think that can be intimidating to some people. Somebody like me, I'm like, this is awesome because there's so many things I can delve into, right? But
Yeah.
some people, it can be intimidating because there's so many different avenues you can go with it,
Yeah.
right? You don't have to use every aspect of it. You could
Right.
just sell. You could just do agent attraction. There's so many things you can do. So, yeah, but getting back to our group and just the knowledge of our group, because we have some people that really excel in one thing and some that excel in another, and
Right.
we have all of the aspects of it. And every call I've been on for training, it's been somebody different, which is awesome, right? So what I've learned is that we have such a vast array of people that we can turn to at any given time, to be honest, with
Right.
whatever circumstance we run into.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So true. So true.
Hmm.
So as you're moving into a goal setting session with the teams,
Yeah. Hmm.
uh, do you find that as you've transitioned into EXP, your vision, your goals have adjusted at all?
You know, I think as far as um, adding some of the agent attraction piece, that probably has changed my goals a little bit because I do need to push myself to maybe work on it. That's going to be one of my goals this year is I'm going to add that to a piece of my goals.
Right.
I'm pretty good about like setting my goals. I like to do a lot of personal goals as well as business goals. I kind of, and a lot of them really tie in together, right?
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
but I mean, I would say as far as EXP goes, I mean, it's really just my first year of this has only been, I think, what I'm 4 months in, I think, is it 4 months, 5 months in. I think there's so much more to learn that's my goal for 2023 is one of them is to really dive into EXP,
Right.
TV core in particular, you know what I mean? So there's so
Right.
much more to dive into. So as far as I don't think they've changed as much, I think I'm still trying to figure out the system. And then I think I can expand from there.
That is so fair. There's a lot to get your arms around, and it takes a little
Yeah,
while.
there's a
Yeah.
lot. Yeah.
So, given your experience in real estate, and you've truly created an awesome business, given that experience, as you bring on a new agent or you think back to when you started, what one or two things would you tell a new agent today as they look at their business to maybe to really hit the ground running and do it
Mhm.
well?
So here's the thing. I think coming into real estate right now is obviously an interesting time, right? And if even newer agents started, I'm still going to say newer agents a year into it, right? 2 years into it. Those are newer agents, right?
Yeah.
The problem about this is you could throw a dart and sell a house, truthfully. I mean, everybody was buying, right? What I would say to new agents right now is it's not easy. Selling real estate is not easy. It doesn't come easy. Yes, if you have a great pipeline and you've got family that all wants to buy, great. But the reality is not all even family wants to buy from you because they don't want you to know all their information, kind of thing. Everybody has that, right? So, I mean, you know what I would say? I mean, I think the most important thing too is, and I have a couple new agents right now, it's really about building, just getting yourself out there. It's about exposure and it's about not being afraid to get yourself out there.
Yeah.
Social media is a bugger for everybody, but it's so important to get out there. And you know what? We all know now, unfortunately, video's it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you have to get out of your comfort zone. I am the first one. I'm going to be the first one to tell you, Kelly, I'm super vain about some things. I am. And I'm like, oh God, this is terrible, but it's so important. Exposure to yourself and not being afraid to talk to people about real estate, not being afraid
Yeah.
to be like, hey, I got my license,
Yeah.
send stuff to your clients. Just make sure you're touching people all the time with real estate, not being obnoxious about it, but also just making them aware of it, you
Right.
know?
That stealth marketing doesn't work, huh?
No, yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Sometimes just pick up a piece of lettuce, like, "Ooh, I'm a real estate agent." No, don't do it. Don't scare people. Yeah.
Right, right. And just, helping a new agent figure out what are all the
Hmm.
channels and how do I get back to my sphere so that they
Yeah.
know that I've taken on
Hmm.
this new career and I'm
Yeah.
moving forward with it. And why
Yep.
would you trust me? Why would
Yeah.
why would you come to me? Because I've got this wealth of support behind me.
Right. And that's so important. I think that's the number one thing too. I've done several different programs over my real estate career too. I did Buffini and I did, what I did. So I follow a lot of the different structures, right? And so I'm all about pop buys. I'm all about my sphere. I'm very close to my sphere. I am all about explaining to agents your sphere is your base of your is the base of your business, right? You need to make sure you constantly stay in contact with your sphere, whether it's an
Yeah,
email, whether it's a call, whether it's you're going to mail a flyer every month to them, whether it's doing a pop by every 3 months. It's so important to have that sphere because you need those referrals, right?
yeah,
But but there's other ways to get business too, right? We can't just rely on our referrals. Like we can't just be a referral. I mean, some people can be referral based, and that's awesome. Some
right.
people are like, oh, I only do referral. That's great. Well, I don't do that. I don't. I kind of try. I get leads from everywhere. So
Right.
but your base of your business when you're just starting out, just do a great card and send a note to everybody Send a note to I always tell people, my first thing is I say, what's your Christmas list? Do you have your Christmas list in Excel? Where's your Christmas list? That's where you're going to start.
Yeah.
Let all those people know that you sell real estate. Here's the really cool part about eXp though, right? Here's the super cool part about it. I didn't grow up in Montana. I grew up in Southern California, right? So my Christmas cards go everywhere. eXp is a national brokerage. So if somebody says to me, hey, my friend's a broker in Montana, I've told all my friends, my notes even say, hey, if you know somebody local, let me know because I can refer them. That's so important. I mean, that's the really cool part about eXp as well. And I've actually gotten referrals, in California. So that's the really cool part about it. So
It is.
Yeah.
It is. Now, take it from a different angle. Yeah, as you progress through your career and then you were your own independent broker. What one thing or two things might you tell an independent broker about your journey and about where you are today?
So I've actually had these conversations recently.
Okay.
So I have gotten a few phone calls from people. What I would say is, what do you want to spend your time on? Like, what do you want to spend your time on? If you look at yourself, if you look at your day, right? And if you time block your day, okay, if you look at your calendar and you're time blocked out, what are you spending your time on? Okay.
Yes.
And so and the conversations have been, I do accounting, I work with my accountant, I'm going over admin, I'm doing, a lot of them are things I've got to pay the bills. There's all these things, right? So it was like, okay, well, if you could knock off some of those times, what could you do more of?
Okay.
Could you sell more real estate? Could you bring on some more agents? And the answer has been yes and yes, or no and yes, or oh gosh, yeah, okay, I'm not comfortable like talking to agents about coming on, or gosh, you know what, I would love to sell more real estate. Okay, well, this is let's talk about this, and let's look at the numbers, right? Like let's look at, I did a little spreadsheet for myself too, and I was like, hey, let's look at the numbers. Here's what you're spending money on. And I don't have to get all personal about it with people, but it's like, hey, here's what you're spending money on. Here's what you could avoid. Here's what this system can do for you. And it's like, holy cow. So I have people thinking right now, because it was like, oh gosh, okay, wait a minute. I can do this, and I can still keep my name. That's the other thing too. The independent brokerage, I think that's the most important thing too, though. We work pretty hard to want to build our name for ourselves, right?
Exactly.
And yes, you have to drop the ego. You definitely have to drop the ego a little bit. But the fact that you can still keep your name, I think there's something to that, and I think it's important, right? For some people, because I think there's a little bit of a boost in there. And so knowing that you can do that, and I think there was a lot of misunderstanding of what eXp was, because eXp is still new, right? A lot of people just don't really know about it, especially in Montana. I don't even think we have 400 agents across Montana. So I didn't even know until I joined the depth of it. So it's kind of amazing that way. I don't know, did I answer your question?
You did, the depth, and then I put also the flexibility. As an independent broker, I have a lot of folks that are just real concerned about, well, they're going to be micromanaging my business, and I won't be able to do all these things I used to do. Have you experienced that as you moved your brokerage across, that the way you wanted to manage your business, you had to adjust? Is there anything like that?
No, like here's what I'm going to say. Honestly, no, like nothing has changed.
Okay.
Honestly, no. And it's actually, quite frankly, it's gotten easier. I upload documents to SkySlow.
Yeah.
Corey's like, here, you're missing this. Perfect. Like, honestly, for me, that's about it. Other than that, I'm doing everything I want to do. I'm doing my own customer appreciation events. I'm doing my own flyers. I'm doing everything. I'm, of course, following guidelines, right? I mean, we have guidelines that we want to make sure we follow. We want to make sure we let everybody know that we are brokered by eXp. That's just so important, right? Because that's important to get that out there. But honestly, from a day-to-day perspective, absolutely not. Nothing has changed, truthfully. We just have more benefits, and we just have more technology. Like I said, we're just being powered by eXp. That's how I look at it, or boosted by eXp. That's how I look at it.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Joe, you have really given a lot of nuggets to folks today. I so appreciate it. Of course. Is there one last thing that you'd like to share with our audience today?
I would say for agents that are currently they're currently selling, but they're not with eXp, I think it's worth having the conversation. It's not just about the commission splits. There's so much more to it. It's not always about the money. I know some people think it is, but it's really not. And then for newer agents, what I would say is talk to different brokerages, but talk to somebody with eXp so we can explain to you what our training looks like. And it's important to get training from the onset and be with somebody that you trust and that can train you properly, so you can go out there and hit the ground running.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, you've built an amazing business, and it's been such a pleasure, such an honor to have you as part of our team and to get to know you better. So thank you
I
so much
appreciate that. Thank you so much, Kelly.
for coming on today. You
Of
take
course.
care.
Yeah, thanks so much. Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.